Welcome to this very special episode of something that we're calling The Secrets of Xingyi Quan REDUX. The purpose of this show is to revisit the episodes that have been released and discuss aspects that were raised in them, whether they be accurate, inaccurate, interesting, not interesting, etc., just to flesh out these points for the audience. I'm joined by my two good friends that I couldn't be happier to have you two on. I wouldn't want to do this with anybody else. We've got the Enigma, Jarek Szymanski, and we've got Jon Nicklin. So I'm really happy to be doing this with you guys. And you know, you guys have been very, very supportive of the work and also of coming to do this. So I'm very happy. Welcome, you two.
Thanks, Byron. Always a joy to be on your program. I do have my beer chilling in the fridge, ready to come out.
Good.
Thank you for having me, Byron. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure to be with you guys, and John and you.
Yeah, well, we're glad we caught you in between hunting down caves of ancient hermits in the middle of nowhere. So I'm glad you had the time to do this today. If anybody hasn't seen China Off the Beaten Track on Facebook, Jarek regularly documents his travels and his adventures, going to see ancient places and what goes on when he goes trying to find these places and the people he meets along the way. It's really interesting.
I mean, Jarek, I know I've said it to you before, but your website, China from Inside, was the reason I moved to China. One of the main reasons I moved to China.
I'm very sorry for that. You know, I know there are so many beautiful places in the world, and you should have probably chosen better, more wisely. Don't blame me, please.
It's done now. There's no blame going around.
I'm sorry.
All right, so today we're going to focus on the first 3 episodes. So episode 1, 2, and 3 of the series. Up until we're recording this, I've released 8. There's probably about, I would say, 3 or 4 left, and then it'll be done. It was a rather long documentary that they released, but I think about 12 episodes should cover the whole thing. So we're going to do it in little pieces, and we're going to talk about episodes 1, 2, and 3 today, and some interesting bits that were raised from there. Now, I want to say, and then you guys can chime in, the first thing that's really became apparent to me when I was, not only watched this series a while ago, but then decided, let me translate it for people to see, mainly because it's a mix of very interesting information. But the first thing that stood out to me was it's very much a Shanxi propaganda kind of. There's a lot of Shanxi bias, and there's a definite goal with what they're presenting and how they're presenting it.
Mm.
So yeah.
I mean, and even to the point of representing maybe only one viewpoint within Che style, actually.
Yes.
Like even other branches of Che might not agree with some of the things said in the documentary.
Yeah.
Like never mind Hebei people and other branches.
Right.
We should be happy that they recognize that Li Laoneng was from Hebei. I think we should be happy for that.
Yeah, very true.
Right.
So
they had to in some way that he's a Hebei guy.
Yeah, exactly. So the first thing that was interesting, which I think is something that the West somewhat knows about, but in some senses I don't think they knew, or they haven't been exposed to this aspect so deeply and so clearly, and that's the connection between the Shanxi merchants and, of course, the Piaohao system, and how all of this is connected to Xingyi's history and why certain things occurred in Shanxi. And I think that's a really interesting point for people to if they weren't aware of this. Apart from the, Li Laoneng went to the Dai family, learned this, created that. The impetus and the reason for this to happen in that space, a lot of it is connected to the merchants and the trade that was going through there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Jarek, I'm sure he's going to have a view on this, but that's a key period of history for, especially northern Chinese martial arts, right? Like the Piaohao and the caravans, not just Xingyi Quan, but like other stuff. The 3 emperors, or is it 3 emperor cannons? Sanhao Pao Shui. Like, so they were heavily involved in the caravan guarding. I think in Shandong, one of the main styles would have been mantis. It was a way for them to make a living.
Yeah. Jarek, you got something to add to that?
Well, this is actually the mentioning of Jinshang, the Shanxi merchants. It's I think there is some local, I would say, patriotism when they talk about it. We know that currently Shanxi, its position on the economic map of China is only because of the coal, and they like to look back in the history. Talk about how well the architecture is preserved there, and about the glorious times when the Shanxi merchants actually invented pre-banking system. Let's say
the
Chinese
precursor of the modern banking system.
Yeah. And so linking Xingyi, and I think that in that movie linking Xingyi to that particular period of time and the importance of Shanxi in at that time in China. It was made also on purpose. I'm not really, too sure and convinced how really that had impact on Xingyi.
Right.
I'm not too convinced. When you look at the materials from that books, explaining, talking about martial arts in Shanxi at that time, we see that a lot of caravan bodyguarding services were all Shaolin practitioners. And even the famous Meng family that is in the movie, in the documentary, presented as the one to a large degree responsible for development of Shani into Xingyi.
Yes.
The guy their bodyguard that was working for that particular family in Taigu, Shen Tianbao, he was from Hebei. And he was also doing Shaolin.
It was just like Shen Tianbao. Yeah.
Yes.
He recommended Li Luoneng, right?
Exactly.
They're from the same county or something? In Hebei.
Probably. I'm not really sure if he was from Shenzhen or Shenzhen but he was Laoxiang, exactly. Yeah, so right. I'm not really sure how important Xingyi was in for all those services, because the movie, the documentary, clearly points out that there was a need for a very practical oriented martial art, and Xingyi was the response to that particular demand. But it was just one system among many others. Yes, and we know that there was, like Zhuojiaqiang, and there was some family doing Changquan, Wang Changle, who is mentioned on Cui Zhai's memorial tablet. Is also was one of his teachers, and apparently to these days we have a lot of Shaolin in Taigu. So how important
Gong Yi Quan.
But I'm talking about Wang Changle, who is mentioned on the tablet, who was doing Shaolin. Yeah, about Guun Chin, of course, there are so many systems, and then Xingyi was just one of them. And then
even if you just look at Shanxi,
I would love to see one document proving that Xingyi practitioners were involved in caravan protecting business, apart from the story about I think it was about Dai Longbang, who passed through Changzhou and was
right. I was about to ask you about this. Yeah. What do you? So I think Byron and myself, we both heard the story. Li Luoneng is supposed to have heard about the Dai family because he went through Changzhou and had a like an encounter with one of the local masters. Like, do you think that story is true?
You asking me?
No, he's asking you, Jarek.
Well, both of you, yeah.
I don't know. It's just an oral story. I mean, so many stories have been made up so far, and to support certain, agendas. So I don't know. I don't know. It's just Changzhou was, we know it was famous for martial arts,
So
and now
famous for Baji, for Pigua, for Tongbei. Yeah.
Yes, and if you prove that you are so skillful that you can pass through Changzhou without being bothered, and there's once you put your banner up and then it says I'm from Dai, then everybody lets you pass. Well, it's just a story. It's just
a saying. It's just a story.
Yeah. I mean, if we're thinking about it in a realistic sense, it's probably been exaggerated. So if something happened, it definitely wasn't the way it was portrayed. If you did go through, I think it's definitely been exaggerated. But that's the beauty of the stories that we get in Chinese martial arts is
the martial arts history. I was actually just discussing Wing Chun history with a friend. Like that's even worse.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole other topic. But that's why it takes an experienced person, culturally, linguistically, and I would say to a degree also living within the environment there to understand this aspect of the culture. So you can actually know. We learn it, we listen to it, we know the stories, we repeat them, but we also know, as does everybody else, that there's a lot of exaggeration. Which aspects you want to pluck out of these stories as pearls that actually have value, but the package is a whole. And I think that's one of the Western things that is a problem for me when they want to cut everything off, but the package is a whole. It is Chinese martial arts because it includes these fables. You just need to know what to look at and what to understand as what, so.
Right. I mean, actually, on that point, like the whole Chinese martial arts, Jarek has mentioned to me and probably to you several times, places that he's been, back in the 90s where, the next year they put out a pamphlet with a completely made up history or like exaggerated history. Not specifically talking about Xingyi right now.
Right. Yeah, very true. Well, you've mentioned something there, Jarek, which is quite important, and it was somewhat really shoved down our throats in the first couple of episodes of the series, and that's about Meng Furu and his role in all of this. So I don't know if you guys want to share your understanding from before the series and what you feel about what was presented.
I mean, his role is massively exaggerated, no?
I agree.
I mean, it was so funny to watch that episode and see three guys, on that courtyard, and two of them are practicing, and the scholar is teaching them, showing them the movements. I mean, I don't know who decided to make it like this. It looked like Li Luoneng and Cui Jai were just learning from Meng. Yeah, so
which is ridiculous. I mean, that's like that idea that Meng was a merchant and probably an educated merchant, right?
Yeah, he's like a patron.
Right. So, but that doesn't mean he had any martial skill at all.
Exactly.
Well,
right.
It's one of his descendants, Meng Xianshi. He wrote a book which is called Xingyi Quan Shu Tan Wei. Yeah, so he wrote a book and he mentioned that his family was always fond of martial arts. It was being fond of martial arts does not mean that they were martial arts, mastering martial arts. Of course, they were scholars, and we know that in China, martial artists have very low social status. If we look at this objectively, the right way was to study Confucianist classics, go through imperial examinations, become an official, which meant high social status and good income, and basically you were a man of success. So they probably, he actually mentions that they were fond of martial arts. His ancestors were fond of martial arts. They were patrons. They were employing martial artists, but I don't think to the point that they were able to teach Li Luoneng, as it is shown on the documentary, and then Cui Jai.
Right. I mean, that's totally the wrong way around. I mean, if anything, probably the Meng family, Li Luoneng was working for their family, taught Cui Jai, and then maybe the sons studied their Xingyi from Cui Jai. No.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
We don't know. That's exactly because the documentary shows basically, what was shown there was more like probably the vision of those people who did not really know much about Chinese martial arts history and Xingyi's history. Yeah, so
Right.
maybe I shouldn't really talk about that particular scene. It just made me laugh. I found it funny, and it reminds me of the idea of Chang Naizhou, who had his brother or somebody in the family helping him with the theory of Chang family boxing.
Yeah.
And there was quite a common case that there was always someone in the family who knew I Ching, who knew Bagua, Wu Xing, and if putting some kind of theoretical frame on the martial art, and we know that if the more there is of Confucianist ideas, or maybe Confucianist really, but those ideas that are at the core of Chinese culture, if the more references to classics, the better.
The better.
Just
the more respect to it.
Exactly.
I mean, at this point, can I mention Sun Lutang?
Yeah, go ahead.
No. I just mean it's an example of the same thing. Like the more theory you have, the better.
So,
basically.
I mean, that's a really, and the way Jarek put it is perfect. Is like you have a martial artist who's created some form of a system of martial arts, but then he wants to not only classify it using classical Chinese philosophical ideas, but also does this because it elevates the status of the art. And it's a really important thing for people to realize, because a lot of the time they take it and they put the cart before the horse, and they think the martial art evolved out of the philosophy. Meanwhile, the philosophical frame was one way that martial artists used something to organize and categorize their arts. It can't, and again, I mean, this is why a lot of people get confused and they think that these temples and these places are where martial arts came out of. But in reality, it was the martial arts put that stuff into it. It wasn't that martial arts came out of that stuff.
Right. Like meeting different branches of like the same art, like sorry for using like non-Xingyi examples, but like Wang Peisheng, right? So Wang Peisheng is kind of, I mean, famous for a lot of things, but his Tai Chi is famous for using acupoints to teach.
Right.
But the thing is, I've met lots of other branches of Wu style Tai Chi that, they do almost exactly the same form as him and also have some skill, but don't use acupoints.
Yeah.
Right. And to me, that's a classic example of overlaying like a theoretical thing on top of the original art.
Well, you mentioned Sun Lutang, and Sun Lutang also had a big emphasis of mixing classical medical theory into the teachings that he wrote about, Xingyi Quan and Bagua, etc., and heavily focused on that. Now, why, for the life of me, one of the famous previous generations of Shingi people, one of them that Sun Lutang did spend time with, and he was an imperial court doctor. For the life of me, his name is just slipped my mind.
Are you thinking of Shen Wanlin?
No.
Oh, Bai Xuyuan.
That's it.
Bai Xuyuan.
That's it. Bai Xuyuan.
Oh, who's that?
Okay.
Oh, Bai Xuyuan.
Well, I mean, Jarek, if you want to talk a little bit about it.
Jarek, you know more about that connection, the Bai Xuyuan and Sun Lutang?
Yeah, Bai Xuyuan, I believe he was one of the most famous Xingyi practitioners back in Beijing in the times of Sun Lutang, and he was actually kind of a recluse in those Xingyi circles. He didn't teach many students. And Sun Lutang in his Quanyi Shujian, actually, there's a chapter about Bai Xuyuan. So he was apparently very, very respected at that time.
Right. But he was a Chinese medical doctor, and quite a good one.
Yeah.
And by the way, is a book plug for my book.
Sorry, I apologize to my cleaner.
No problem. The
No
plug for
worries.
my book. I actually have a biography in the biography section of my Dragon Body Tiger Spirit about Baixia. A little bit of information.
Which is a great book, everyone.
But,
Like, honestly.
But
Absolutely.
but this ties back to what we were just talking about, where the person's ideas, or maybe the people that are there, that are available to him from a philosophical point of view, also maybe the person that he learns with, for example, Sun Lutang spending time with Bai Xiyuan, would definitely affect why and how he learns certain things and maybe expounded upon certain ideas and then use those into his system, which might differ from other systems. But we're coming back to your example of Wang Peisheng's differences. So there could be something in Wang Peisheng's background that influenced him quite heavily, and he thought it was a very valid or important or useful aspect to add to his art, these acupoints, or even using it as a tool to explain how power transfers, meridians, Jingluo, etc. We do know this from a lot of the older Shingi writings, that when they talk about the different channels, they're not talking about magical power. They're just trying to tell you a chain of motion to a degree using older terms, So there is a lot of that too. And coming back to Meng Furu in the Xingyi Quan documentary series, maybe he was the person that had some understanding of philosophy and Chinese aspects, but to sit and try to say that he was sitting there trying to tell them how to alter their footwork and to change Pichuan and revise Dai family Xingyi into what we now know as Xingyi Quan is a little bit silly, They should.
Right. I mean, that's the case of revisionism going too far. And part of the same thing is, I'm sure both of you have heard this, where certain people say that Che Yijai himself invented 6 of the animals.
Yeah.
Like, right. So it's something I've heard going around Shanxi, and it's totally wrong.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the common story that Guun Chin went to Shanxi and then Che Yijai taught him the animals, and you haven't heard this?
Yeah, I don't think that's. Yeah, no. I know the version that you're talking about. Yeah.
So
there's actually because in Shanxi, as you probably have noticed, that they also try to make direct connection to Dai family. Yeah, so they try to skip Li Laoneng and say that a part of what is now the contents of Shanxi Xingyi comes directly from Dai family, not through Li Laoneng. And I think this is also the case of those 6 animals. Is that Li Luoneng learned only 6 of them and taught only 6 of them, and then if Che Jai learned the rest from Dai Erlu, and then I think it was either Li Cunyi, or I think it was Li Cunyi who went to Shanxi and learned the rest of them.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure, or maybe Guo Shen, because Guo Shen apparently he also visited Shanxi. Yeah, as we know from the famous or infamous photograph on which is also which you've made such a beautiful picture of Byron. Yeah, through the color, and then you that's which is in that famous.
Get your T-shirt tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's we see there's a lot of propaganda. We don't know. Perhaps Che Jai learned a little bit from Dai style, but from the Dai family members, we don't know that. If there's no proof whatsoever that happened, and this would be actually quite against the traditional way of passing the art, unless Li Laoneng agreed to that. But
right, I mean, in traditional Chinese martial arts, like it's actually frowned upon to go to your shiye and learn directly, right? Like he's not supposed to directly correct the grand student, grand disciple.
Fortunately, that was not mentioned in the documentary, so we cannot blame the documentary for that. It's just one of those.
I would say, like, things are often the opposite way around to how it was presented in that documentary. Like, for my particular, you guys know I do song. It's mentioned that Song actually had to go to Hebei to finish his studies with Li Luoneng, because by that time Li Luoneng had moved back to Hebei.
Right. Are you agreeing with that statement, or?
No. So like, I think the thing that surprised me when I actually looked in eight, when everyone became disciples of Li Luonan and everything, is the eight main disciples. They all became disciples of Li Luonan really close together in time, and Li Luonan, and very soon after that, Li Luonan moved back to Hebei. So I think the place that he moved, it wasn't Shenzhou, it was another place called Xiling or Xizhou or something like that. Xiling. Thanks, Jarek.
The
Right, so
Western
it's,
culture.
exactly. It's written in the Song style book that Song Shirong had to finish his studies in Hebei. He didn't finish his studies in Shanxi.
Right. Yeah, well, it does make sense. We also know from our own experiences, if you've trained long enough with one teacher, how things get finalized as he gets older, how he formalizes certain things, how he revises, and might even change things completely towards the end of his life. My teacher's an example. As he's gotten older, if you look at not only I've got writings of his from when he was young and also writings now, and you can see a focus change, certain aspects changing, certain things changing. Even, for example, he has a 综合 Guun routine, which is a really nice staff routine. And I've got like rare footage of him in his 30s just going through it. And then the version he taught me had many more movements, And I asked him about this. He's like, yes, I found it was lacking on certain things, so I added these things into it here. And I found a couple of the techniques to be too repetitive, so I changed them up for something else. And so it happens, right? But you can see if somebody is developing something and he hasn't had time to finish it, he's not gonna stop developing when he moves back to Hebei. Li Longneng wouldn't be like, oh, I've left Shanxi, I can't change or add anything to my system. We'll just leave it like that. Of course, he developed more, so it makes sense.
mean, I don't know how you guys would feel about this statement, but I think a lot of the non-spear weapons in Xingyi were not there. They were just developed by each line,
Independent.
Like, I mean, well, the broadsword and the straight sword, the Dao Jian that we have is not standard across Xingyi.
Right.
Like, very nice 5-element broadsword, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we have 5 elements broadsword.
I mean, that probably did come directly from the 5 elements empty hand.
Yeah, most likely all of the 5. We have 5 elements for all of the main weapons, right? So, and they're very similar. They've got, they've got a strong connection to the 5-element bare hand. So, and you can say the 5 elements bare hand is a strong connection to the 5-element spear, But anyway, that's it. I've actually told you my theory on the sickle kind of blade that you guys use in the Song family. That.
I remember you mentioning it.
Yeah.
Lin Jiao Dao.
Exactly, Lin Jiao Dao. I mean, I've got a theory that there might have been some interaction with regards to Islamic ideas and the Zulfikar. I don't know if you know what that is. It's a split sword in Islam. It's exactly the same thing.
I know the word, but I don't know what it looks like.
It's literally a sword that's split at the top, like that. It almost looks identical. I have no proof of this. It's just a theory because I've seen the swords in. I can't remember which country actually has it on their flag. In fact, you could see it on their flag. But
well, I mean, the brothers, the Song, because it was Song Shirong, Song Shide, like the brothers traveled a lot.
Yeah.
Very widely. So it's possible. I mean, and the most of the far northwest of China is Islamic, and if you go beyond with the modern Chinese borders, it's entirely Islamic.
Right.
So.
Feng Shirong was a native of Daxing anyway, wasn't he?
Right. Yes, the family is originally, Zhuji.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Available now from the MushinMartialCulture.com online store is retro-themed Shaolin Temple and Shaolin Monk apparel, featuring images of the temple and famous mural images of the fighting monks, all rendered in pixel art style. With 2 funky t-shirt designs to choose from, get yours today. Worldwide shipping available. Order today from MushinMartialCulture.com. Okay, so we've gotten into certain aspects that that are quite important in the book. They talk about a couple of things, the renaming in episode 2 from Xingyi to Shingi. And the focus of some of the presenters in there are talking about it only happened in Hebei that the name change was formalized and finalized. 1900 sometime it was formalized and finalized. You've got somebody in Shanxi saying, no, it might have been a dialect accent issue. For example, he uses the example of Anshen Pao and Aishen Pao, changing, saying Chui Jai created Aishen Pao, which means close body. And in Hebei, we call it Anshen Pao, which means safe or protect the body partner, Pao routine. And in fact, they then try to make full circle with their Shanxi propaganda, trying to say that Anshen Pao is the wrong name because it changes the idea.
Look, on that point, look, there's a couple of things there. I mean, anyone who's been to Shanxi, like there is quite a strong dialect. Jarek has, and the Dai style. I mean, so the dialect that the Dai style people speak over in Qi County is different from Taigu. I don't know, Jarek, you ever managed to understand some of the dialect that they speak?
Well, I was lucky to have them speak 普通话 to me, standard Chinese. So, but
I have a video of my grand teacher translating for Wang Yinghai from the Dai style. Like, so I don't know how he would do it because Taigu dialect is different from Qi County dialect. I guess. Yeah. So the dialect thing is real. I mean, like even now, like when I go, every year, like if you hear them say, xiong,
Yeah.
Right? Like they don't really distinguish. Like, but the whole Anshan Pao, I mean, that's a kind of that's a propaganda thing.
Well, I think there's another aspect. Yeah. The problem that with literacy or the lack of literacy among the practitioners. This is one thing. The second thing is access to boxing manuals. I mean, even if you have access to a boxing manual and when you cannot read it, then it's of little use anyway. Yeah. So even probably the name of the style, unless somebody explained it to you, you could easily kind of mix and confuse. We know that for sure the first book that was published using Xingyi as a form and intent was Sun Lutang's book in 1915. That was the first public book published widely and publicly that made the system kind of popular among people who could read. But we don't know what was happening before that. The names probably were used without much putting much importance on the exact meaning. So I think if we now we often attach a lot of importance to the name of the style. Yeah, so Bagua is 8 trigrams. Yeah, so the trigrams are, and there's some building up the whole movement kind of structure on the concept of trigrams.
Right. So first I must master the trigrams.
Yes, and with Taiji but Taiji, the yin yang, it's just it's basically exists everywhere. Offense, defense, attack, defense, whatever. Whatever you look at it, there's always this dualism of. So it's not about Taiji only. You can find it everywhere. You could call it even Xingyi Taiji because there's also emptiness and fullness and all those ideas. So but of course, in case of Shingi, we have the link to the historical link to which we to the origins of the style, which was called whatever Yiquan or Xinyi and so on, and we have some old manuals that pointed the art was called Xinyi, but I think changing it into Xinyi. I don't know how important was that actually.
Right, exactly. Like in modern times, we focus too much on the theory and the naming of things, thinking that will make us, super good practitioners. But the reality is, like, if we go back to Li Luoneng's time and maybe the time of the 8th grade disciples, very few of them could read or write, because education in China was only for the rich or the aristocracy.
Right. Well, they even said like Li Guanghong's 1895 book was called Xingyi Quan because he was honoring its Dai family Xingyi roots. And I was like, not necessarily. How did you come to that conclusion? I mean, to say that so clearly it's just not honest. I mean, like I've said this a million times.
I mean, that's I mean, almost certainly that's based on like nothing.
Exactly, it's based on nothing.
I mean, because there are vanishingly few Li Guangheng practitioners around to say anything about it.
Right. Well, I mean, my Xingyi teacher was illiterate. He could not read or write. But everything was memorized, So.
You mean Liu Huafu? Is that your?
No, that's his grand teacher.
Oh, grand teacher. Sorry.
Zhao Zhong. So, and even my teacher would say Wu Binlou was not very literate either. So he could kind of, but when he had somebody, for example, after he'd teach you something, Wu Binlou would give you a pu, but a lot of the time he would recite it and somebody would have written it down for him. So
that makes a lot of sense,
and that's happened with a lot of our pu in the past, and that's why things change, and that's why discrepancies come in. It happens, so it's not unusual. But I mean,
but also I think like in the old days, I think the Quanfu, the pu, was given at the end.
Right.
When once a disciple had been training with the teacher for 8, 9, 10 years, then. He's okay. You need to get this down. You need to memorize this. Like before that, just train.
Yeah. Well, they in the documentary they basically try to give Meng Furu the credit for naming Shingi as well. So the key repetition of Meng Furu's prominence as an important person in aspects that we kind of find hard to accept. I'm wondering if there's any descendants of Meng Furu that had some financial contribution to this. Documentary, really. I mean,
was it like the documentary trip with Will, Monkey Steal Speech for everyone watching? We actually met a Che-style practitioner called Meng Qingwei.
Okay.
I did want to ask him if he was related to the Meng family, but it wasn't really the time.
Right. So anyway, that's what we got today. We understand it. The style is quite crystallized, as we call it, Xingyi Quan. How that came, we can only speculate. I don't want to give any single person credit, but I will give a lot of credit to Sun Lutang because not that he named it, but that he popularized the name, which probably in essence set it in a way that probably wouldn't have happened if he didn't publish that book and so early and it wasn't disseminated so wide.
Yeah.
I do want to say you mentioned Jarek earlier that older names, Yichuan included. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, actually, I was right now I was thinking about this kind of double way of thinking. On one hand, we see that the movie shows how important Meng Furu and the Treijai was to the creation of a better, more effective martial art. On the other hand, we see that how important it was to keep the old names. So because as the Confucianist logic always pointed at the past as the times of where the true ideal society and moral norms and those norms in the society were applied and now is always worse than it was before. Yeah, it's kind of old man's thinking. Yeah.
I think we don't have as much of that in the West. Like I can feel it very strongly with certain groups in China. Like the older version is always the best.
Well, that's the classical thinking, right? That has to do with filial piety. It's directly connected to Confucian thought. So the extrapolation of filial piety and Confucian thought would lead you to the understanding that if your father is a greater person than you, your grandfather is an even greater, and as we go further back, they just become more and more amazing, even when they were clobbering each other over their head and living in caves. They were just superior, in all ways to us, So, I mean, you see it even in in other manuals, So, like the veneration for the old is always better than the new. So, yeah. But Yi Quan is quite interesting because my teacher would always say the 5 elements used to be referred to as Yi Quan, and the 12 animals used to be referred to as Xing Quan. So that there is something there, So we're just coming back to what you said. But I've just got my notes from episode 2 here, and I'm like, yeah, Meng Furu did all of that. Then Meng Furu also helped Li Lonong select disciples. Then Meng Furu is responsible for Chui Jai having his destiny. And again, like I said earlier, I just can't understand why they've elevated him in every single aspect. If he was a patron...
Right, unless they're sponsoring the entire documentary,
right?
I'm thinking.
That's what I'm thinking. They were rich merchants. The chances of them still having...
I mean, they were definitely very rich back at the time, but are they rich now?
I don't know, We could try figure that out, But what's interesting? As we get to episode 3, they say that competition amongst the Biaoju, the escorts, the bodyguard services, etc., is what created Shingi, the impetus for creating Shingi to become effective and more focused on effective, and turned it, they used the word, into a type of a weapon. Not a physical weapon, but a weapon. The style became a weapon to be used in that environment that helped them secure business and et cetera, et cetera. So, again, apart from Meng refining the Xingyi style itself, apparently, according to the documentary, it's because of the silver minting that Li Lonong went along at Meng's behest to go watch them minting silver, and he saw the type of footwork they used, which became the stepping pattern, which they called it 7-star stepping, or Santi sure, the basic stepping that we do in Xingyi Quan, whatever name you want to call it, previously called the silver shearing step, and it came directly from silver minting. Now, if anybody has a logical brain, those 2 comments will be a contradiction in your head immediately. One, you're trying to create an art that is trying to compete with other martial arts, and the impetus for that art becoming the way it is effectiveness. And 2, they go watch some people minting silver and like, you know what? We're going to use that footwork. That doesn't connect to me. That's illogical, So it sounds like a nice story, but realistically, it would be practicality and other aspects that creates techniques, not something so disconnected, like I'm going to watch a striptease and I see some movement there. You know what? This is what I'm going to put in my art now. I'm not going to tell you why, but it just, it works.
I know, but I think it's, it's like a more general trend in which we observe in China, that all the changes, reforms, revolutions come from the working people. From those at the very bottom, the core, the blood of the flesh of the society. So all the reforms come from them. And in martial arts, when we talk about the Xiniba, the Shaolin Xiniba, they also talk about this, that it's based on the movements of a peasant. I don't know how you call this tool for this kind of hopping movement, Jueba. So we know there's a very famous discussion in Taiji circles, and on one hand we have Zhang Sanfeng, all the legends of Taoist saints, immortals creating of martial art, and then we have that when you read the books from the 50s, especially the 50s, 60s, 70s, there's this whole idea of classes in the society, and the most important one is the class of farmers, workers, and they are the ones who contribute most to all the changes and inventions in the society. So perhaps this one thread concerning the silver mining was linking this idea of martial art that has contribution from working people.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm not.
That makes sense. You could have nailed it right there. But you know, like they had. I don't know if you want to add something, John.
Actually, Byron, the only thing I have to add to that is there was a song style guy who was very interested in history actually tried to do some independent research about this several decades back, and apparently he actually tracked down like a great grandson of Li Luoneng who didn't do any Xingyi at all, but he repeated this thing about like some connection to the silversmith. Right. So I think, well, you know, one is the story and the other is the reality. So I think it's likely some of the changes came from some of the working class students, but it's not that they went to a silversmith and just looked at his legs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that, and even if there was some similarity, I don't think that it would have been the primary catalyst. Personally, when I look at our stepping pattern, and you hold a spear and you understand how spear works, you see a universal type of stepping in spear. And it's not only China, you know? If you look at old formations, even like the phalanx of ancient Greece, the stepping method was pretty similar, and so was the weight distribution. So
it's determined by the spear.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, we get to it because there's a person in the episode 3 named Guun Chin, who I know personally. I've actually taught. It's the same courses that he's taught at in Guangzhou before, and even in Italy we taught together once as well. And he says, you know, if you look at Santi and the footwork, it's very similar to boxing. Well, there you go. Boxing didn't need to look at forward like pressing and minting to come to that conclusion.
The demands of combat.
It's the demands of combat that did that, you know. So, you know, I mean, maybe there was a little bit of influence, but how much? And I think it's
been exaggerated over time.
Exactly. So they talk about the footwork being good for closing distance very quickly. Indeed, the footwork in Xingyi Quan closes distance very quickly. Within a couple of steps, I can move 2 or 3 meters, and I can launch my mass into it. That's what it's about. So, you know, for me, that's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. So, yeah.
My whole life is a lie.
Are floppy Chinese swords getting you down? Do you practice traditional Chinese martial arts but have difficulty locating and sourcing firm, solid steel training swords? Well, look no further. Available now on the Mushin Martial Culture online store are high-quality, custom-made, hard steel traditional training swords. Made from the highest quality materials, these swords have both the feel and weight distribution of traditional, authentic Chinese martial arts swords, featuring high-quality scabbards, as well as the option to include a historically accurate handle wrap. This sword is built to last. Head on over to the Mushin Martial Culture online store to order yours today. Available as well on the store are other items, apparel, training shoes, and other unique Chinese martial arts merchandise. The URL is mushinmartialculture.com. Ditch the tin foil and get yourself a sword you can be proud of.
So, I mean, those are my notes that I took from the first 3 episodes, and I don't know if you had any topics and points that stood out to you that we didn't cover.
Yeah, Jarek, I mean, I think you felt they were playing down the Dai style almost completely, right?
It wasn't even mentioned.
Not really. I mean, there's one error, obviously, when they talk about Li Luoneng. By the way, the name is also kind of being used in there are so many versions of the name, we this is also another topic probably that should be addressed. But anyway, if in the second part it's mentioned that on the 29th year of Dao Guang, Li Laoneng became the disciple of Dai Erlu. And this is not exactly the truth, because it was 1849 And that was exactly the year when Li Laonen was employed by Meng family, Meng Furu.
Right.
So I think it's something someone at some point got confused. Yeah. So this
Something
is,
up.
of course, it's not true. Li Laonen obviously was studying with Dai family before that, and he studied as far as we know for 10 years. He arrived in Qi County at the age of 37. We don't know exactly when he was born. There are many versions of
Many
of
versions.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is the problem.
Yeah, so if he was 37, if he was born in 1808, yeah, which is usually the most common date,
Birthday.
then he would come to Xixian in 1845. Studying for 10 years would be 1855. But he was employed by Meng family in 1849, 6 years before he finished his studies with Dailunbang, Daiarlu. We don't know.
Right. Something's a bit wrong with some of the dates. One thing that strikes me about all of this is the sort of white heat of Xingyi Quan, like that period when Li Lonan was teaching, learning himself from the Dai family and then teaching the 8 great disciples. That was actually a very short period of time. Like it was only the space of like 25, 30 years. Because think about it, Sun Lutang was already like 3rd generation Xingyi, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's releasing his book in 1915. I mean, that's really not a very long time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
they didn't mention much about the Dai family. They didn't mention much about the background or even who, what, where, when in the documentary. I know the documentary was focused more from Xingyi Quan, but you can't disconnect it from.
You can't tell the story of Shingi without talking about the Dai. I mean, and this is a bit off a slightly different point, but do you remember in one of our articles you mentioned like the last surviving, the daughter of the Dai family, Dai Guilan?
Yes.
Right. Like a long time later, like maybe just recently, actually, in the last several months, I saw a picture of her correcting someone's Xingyi Quan. So she did practice the family art. Definitely.
Obviously, I mean, I learned about it also later. I mentioned that I met her in Xixian because I was expelled, or I was the person who was not well received when I arrived in Wenchu. Yeah, so they said, you should have come with an introduction letter from a 组织 organization. I don't know. Anyway, so I just left the place of the house of Fan Yuanjia of Guo Weihan. Guo Weihan was also not mentioned. Yeah, we don't. There's so much.
Right. So they didn't mention the Dais very much. They didn't mention Guo Weihan at all. I mean,
why Guo Weihan would be important in that particular for that particular issue of development of Xingyi into Xingyi, because according to certain books, one of them is Zhao Jiangheng. He was the one who taught Li Laonan. He was the one who taught him like a stripped up version of Dai style, or made up version of Dai style. But this kind of idea comes, of course, from Dai family, who wants to protect their own.
Well, I mean, we're getting beyond the realms of the 3 episodes that we were supposed to be talking about. But I was just shown a set of 5 fists from a Dai style teacher that isn't their 5 elements, but looks a lot like Xingyi's 5 elements.
Well, what did they
say? And I'll send you guys the video after this. I can't prove it. I don't have any written proof, but I think Guo Weihan taught something, but it wasn't the Dai 5 elements because it looks too different, right?
Well, I know whatever this person showing you wasn't influenced by later learning Xingyi Quan.
Right, of course. It's so difficult now that we're standing, so many years later. It's so difficult to tell, what the it was.
Right.
Exactly, and with Guo Weihan, we know that he started also Tungbei Quan. Tungbei was very strong in Shanxi. I mean, even in Chen clan, the famous Taiji clan, the Chen family, Taiji is basically a form of Tungbei that came from Shanxi. Yeah, so
Right, the
of course
Hongdong Tungbei, right? Hongdong
yeah,
Tungbei.
Hundong Tungbei. Of course, well, there's another version that is, we. This is, I'm very sorry to repeat it again. Everybody works and makes up history to serve his own agenda. So, of course, Chen style talks about, what was his name, Guo Yongfu, who went from Chenjiagou or whatever. He was somebody from Henan, from Chenjiagou. He changed his name into Guo and went to Shanxi to teach Tungbei there. Yeah, so yes,
That's
there's
the
this
story?
idea. Yes, that he was from Henan and he taught Tungbei in Shanxi.
That's ridiculous.
Well, that's one of the stories that you hear.
So he changed his name and he was teaching Tongbei.
Yeah, because he was probably he did I don't know if he killed somebody or whatever. He changed his name, and he escaped to Shanxi, where the Chen clan originally came from. Probably they had some family there, and he went there and then taught martial art, taught Tungbei there. The family must have forgotten it. The family in Shanxi, obviously. Yeah. So, anyway,
of course.
So there's so much of that white noise that we hear, and this white noise gets
revisionism.
Exactly, and it becomes certain people promote it, and it serves certain groups, and those people repeat it, and then they teach students, and the students strongly believe their
teachers. By this point, it's 3 or 4 generations removed from the person who started saying that particular story or angle, right?
Yeah. So. Yeah, sorry for going off topic, but it's just it reminded me of.
No, I mean it's a great point. Actually, to go back to something that Jarek, you said at the beginning of the episode, like this chat, like we often look back on things based on the styles that are popular that have survived now, right? But often styles are popular now because they're good for health, or it doesn't mean that they were the bodyguard style or the caravan guard style back over 100 years ago, right? So, what about Liu Hequan? What about I don't know? What about Jarek? That type of Tongbei that you actually do, right? He Tongbei, which is apparently is very practical, very usable.
Well. It's. I'm just thinking about those styles and how we have to deal with certain trends and the propaganda that is being promoted by the styles. And it's just going back to the documentary. I just see it very much as just like you both gentlemen pointed out at the very beginning, that it presents one version of, and it's not representative to chess style, but one branch of chess style. So I think when we watch this documentary, we should be well aware of that. We shouldn't consider this as the ultimate truth or the version of history that is closest to what really happened. So I think this is like Byron, you mentioned also that in the West there is this so much importance put on history. It's the history that proves that my martial art is efficient. It is not the history. Yeah. History is just it's just a bunch of fables and legends and stories, and what matters is how we practice it and how good we are at it. But of course, it's to us as people who are interested in history, we like to dig into that, and we like to we would love to know what really happened and how this great martial art, as we know it, Xingyi Quan, or what it originated from and how it evolved into what we see now. And
how it developed.
Yeah, this is really interesting, and we can only take references from other martial arts. We have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we have MMA. It's happening. Yeah, for the last certain decades, we've been watching it and seeing how things change, and we can talk about rules, how rules of tournaments change the technical repertoire of those of people taking part in the MMA competitions. But over the history, I'm sure there were so many different aspects that made Xingyi become what it has, with stress on Santi, with different stepping methods, different striking methods, and I think it's all boils down to looking for the best way of training one to become efficient in fighting, in defending himself. Yeah, it's not the theory. It's not about Yijing. It's not about the meridians. It's not about acupoints. It's a nice stuff when you teach, and it makes your students feel that their teacher is awesome. He's so well educated, because education.
Right. I mean, I think a lesson for all of us is not to buy into my version of history or your version of history or whoever's. I mean, I feel like that is happening a lot nowadays. I mean, it's probably always been like that, but particularly so now.
So what you're saying is his story and his story and his story might have certain bits and pieces that are useful, but don't only refer to one.
Well, I mean, if Jarek ever releases his book, then that is the official version of history.
That's the official one, but he's an exception.
Don't put pressure on me.
But speaking of books, and I think this particular book had a heavy influence in the series. So possibly connection to these people, along with the Meng family funding it, apparently. But this book, which I'm sure is mentioned, and you guys, we've discussed it a little bit.
Who's the author of this one? I know the cover.
Wu Dianke.
Wu Dianke. Well, I'll get my beer.
Okay, so the only reason I'm bringing this up is because of the aspect with regards to twisting and changing. There you go.
Sorry, no, Byron recognizes the Beijing beer.
Yeah. So because we're talking about certain aspects of the history kind of been changed and pushed forward and focused on, ignored and twisted. But there's actually a little bit of controversy when this book was first published. And in fact, there's quite a good connection with Jarek with regards to that aspect of this controversy. This particular edition is 2019, and it's changed from the original one. The original one had this famous photo that everybody knows.
Right, the Guun Chin and Che Yizhai photo.
Yeah, and if you can see it, if you know the picture, you've got the two characters in the front, one with a spear and one with a broadsword. However, on the initial publication of Wu Dianke's book, they mirror imaged the picture. So they turned it around, right? So it was mirror imaged for specific reasons. The specific reasons is the seating placement of Guun Chin and Che Yizhai. As far as we know, that's Guun Chin. This picture is not something that was in circulation for the last 100 years. It became probably one of the most famous Xingyi Quan photos after it became publicly known. And because of it, people would be using ways and means to try either pick themselves up or distort history in certain ways. So what they did was they turned the seating arrangement around, because the story goes that Guun Chin, or the Shanxi side of the story goes, that Guun Chin came to Shanxi to finish learning with Che Yizhai. And he finished teaching him animals and whatnot and whatever. But the seating arrangement, according to Chinese culture and Chinese ways, would be the other way around. If Guun Chin was the man of honor, he wouldn't be sitting on that side. He'd be sitting on the other side. And that's exactly why they flipped the image around, because they knew there's a discrepancy in what they're trying to say. than what the photo is showing you. So it's quite interesting because I forwarded you guys that article that I got out of a magazine from the 90s about the initial publication of this book. And I don't actually recall who wrote the article. I must go back and dig it up. I have the article somewhere. But
I know the author, if I may add, Jia.
Okay.
Jia.
And
he was the author of the article.
What is his background?
He's a Xingyi guy himself?
No, he was a teacher at the normal college in Shenzhen. He was from Shenzhen. He was not a Xingyi practitioner. He was doing basically Tai Chi, and he was like a local scholar. So I met him in 1997, and he, that was when the controversy about the book came to light. There was a lot of discussion.
He wrote to correct the mistake.
He wrote the article. He was one of those who noticed that the guy holding the spear, Li Fujian, has his right hand at the front and the rear, and the left leg at the left hand at the back of the spear, yeah, which is the reverse where
the broadsword was being held with the left hand.
Yeah, the broadsword was also held with the left hand. So that was the first. Yeah, I mean, unless they were left-handed, both of them, yeah.
But here's the funny thing about this. I mean, we know the percentage. First of all, in China, you know what it's like. If you're left-handed, you're still damn well right-handed. You know what it's like.
Right, you're forced to be right-handed up until very recently,
yeah. So that doesn't matter. But also the person in the background, in the middle, he's holding something in his right hand. If the photo is the right way around, he's holding something in his right hand. So what would the chances be that there's 3 left-handed people in this photo? Pretty low.
It's almost zero, yeah. Especially in that period of China.
The article itself goes on to kind of eviscerate the whole thing. And the guy actually went and he asked questions to the vice editor or the assistant editor of the book and asked him why he did it. And, I'm going to translate the article and I'm going to release it so people can read it for themselves. But it is really interesting to see that somebody would do such a thing. But it also brings back the question about if that really is Guun Chin, which, so far we can probably say it is, especially with a more recent photo that came up that purportedly had Guun Chin in it as well in another location. A much older Guun Chin, you can see it's the same person to a degree.
Where's that? I haven't seen that one. Like, where's that come out from? The Guun Chin picture.
I don't know who released it, but I only saw it maybe 5 years ago. Do you know which one I'm talking about, Jarek?
Of course I know, because I put it on my Facebook page.
Oh, there you go. Maybe I saw it on Jarek's Facebook.
That photo was actually published in a book about San Juan poetry that you actually mentioned, talking about the bodyguards and the escort bureaus.
Wait, so wasn't it released by the remaining Guun Chin inheritors?
No, it was not actually released by. It was a part of the book, and there are photos of Li Yaochen from San Juan poetry.
Li Yaochen, who is like San Juan poetry.
Yeah, he was like one of the most influential figures in the system. But let's focus on Xingyi. So anyway, the photo was there, and the photo was showing Guun Chin in Beijing, sitting, so that's the photo I understand, Byron, you are talking about. This is the one.
He's quite a bit older.
Yes, and the whole idea, because the original photo was actually found by Wang Jianzhu.
Who is the Xingyi Quan practitioner?
Who is the Xingyi Quan practitioner and the researcher, and he was working for this electric company, traveling around Taigu, and of course using the convenience of his job to meet people. Excuse me?
You're talking about this photo now, right?
I'm talking about this photo. Yes, exactly. He found the photo. Yeah. I don't know exactly who. But he said the photo was kept by, I think, Li Guanheng's disciples, or anyway, a little known branch.
Maybe one of the He Yunheng.
Or maybe Heiyuan. I don't remember right now. I don't
One of
remember
the
exactly
small
right now.
branches that are in Shanxi, yeah.
But in that book, Byron, that you have in your hand, they list everybody on that photo
Yes.
by the name, and actually the only known thing was at least the only four names that Wang Jianzhu was able to recognize were Cui Zhai, Guan Shen, Fan Yongqing, and Li Fuzhen. Only those four people.
Fan Yongqing, right?
Fan
Who's
Yongqing,
also
yeah.
supposed to be quite good, his grandson and everything.
Yeah, he was one of the 8 great disciples of no, he was a disciple of Cui Zhai, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I have never seen this branch, but anyway. So we see a lot that in that very book, a lot of things were added. I don't know how what was how they were able to find out the names of those people. Perhaps they did a really thorough research in Taigu, talking to people, showing them the photo, and somebody was truly able to recognize, or maybe it was just a wild guess, or maybe it was just all made up.
Or maybe they just added themselves through lineage by putting people into the names of who's ever standing there.
Yeah, and of course, Liu Jian had to be in the middle of that.
Right, Liu Jian.
Yeah, the one the most important, because the people who made this, who edited the book, wrote and edited the book, and those who are the same people who are behind the documentary.
Yes.
Yeah, they just made things up, and so the documentary is it's a nice documentary, but again, buyers be warned.
Right.
Well, the Liu Jian story is very interesting because even this Liu Jian character in the middle here has basically the whole idea can be basically thrown out the window. It can be thrown away. That's more than 98%, 99%. It's not him. But what's funny is even when, and this article that I'm referring to was in the 90s, and it totally destroys the idea that this could be Liu Jian. Even so, as I said to you, this is a reprint from 2019, and they've corrected the photo. It's not mirror imaged anymore. But if you go to the first few pages, they still list Liu Jian. Now, that is the common, spread naming of the people in the photo. Okay, fine. But they know better because according to his age, that couldn't have possibly been him. These other chaps are in their 40s. He would have been 16 or 17 or something.
Right. Liu Jian was one of the youngest, right?
And he wouldn't be there. Like,
students.
he wouldn't be there if it is him. He wouldn't be standing there. He'd be somewhere else.
He'd be way off because he was a kid.
Yes,
at the time.
But this one thing. This explains why they put this date in 1903 or 1902 on that photo, that it was taken at that time, and it doesn't really work with the name, with the date of death for Guun Shen. Because if only then Liu Jian would be old enough to look like that guy in the middle and the back row. Yeah. So if the photo was taken,
by that time, like, wasn't Guun Shen like A, living back in Hebei, and B, quite old?
He probably passed away at that time already.
Right, exactly. The dates don't work either. I mean, the photo's real, but like some of the names and the date is wrong.
Let me tell you, because I colored this photo, and because I colored this photo over a very, very long time, and I was looking at this thing on deep levels for such a long time, I've discovered things about this photo that you wouldn't if you just stared at it. This person in the middle has nothing to do with martial arts. Zero. And I'll tell you why he has nothing to do with martial arts. So when they released this book, they said the location for this photo was in Cui Zhai's courtyard. Nonsense. You cannot move camera equipment from that time around. Nobody had 6 million cameras. They weren't portable. It's just not plausible. Additionally, if you actually see the photo, this is a backdrop. it doesn't make sense to move backdrops around. It does make sense for you to go to a camera studio and have this photo taken.
Right, camera studio.
Okay.
Camera studio.
So if you know those old photo machines, there was a cord with a manual button that you had to push to make the thing shoot.
Yeah, flash.
This person in the middle, from me coloring the photo, he's holding that thing in his hand. You can see it.
He's the photographer?
Wow.
He's the photographer. And the reason
Oh my god.
and the reason why they've got this thing around his neck is because he looks out of place. So they put like a 7-jian or a 9-jian around his neck. Just like, let's,
Right.
you know.
Just so he looks like he fits in
So he
with the
fits in.
martial guy.
Because he's like
That's
this,
crazy.
and he's got this thing in his hand.
Right, he's holding the dibber.
Why would you stand like this? Look at how everybody else is standing in the back, on the sides. They're standing upright as you would, not like this.
Right.
And he's looking directly at the camera. He's the operator.
Yeah, he's operating the photo. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Like, you know, you can't take it. Like, I've been to the Chejai, you know, the old, you know, I've been to the Songkai courtyard as well, but the Chejai courtyard, it doesn't look like that
No,
as
it's
well.
not that. It's not his courtyard. It's definitely not his courtyard. So, you know, this would bring a lot of questions to even why Guun Chin was really there. Questions we'll probably never have the answers to, but this kind of thing, the seating arrangement, all of that, the fact that they changed a lot of this, they deliberately flipped the photo around, to me kind of means they're trying to play things down, and possibly there's more to it, why Guun Chin was there. Who knows what the real story is. If you ask the Hebei people, they're going to tell you that Li Luoneng appointed Guun Chin as the inheritor, and he said to him, go back and finish teaching them this other stuff, you know, go teach them. The Dai family had asked that Li Luoneng doesn't let the stuff disappear from the area, you know, maybe it's Li Luoneng telling Guun Chin to go finish this task of making sure everything is transmitted there too. You know, and that would put people in different positions from Che to Hebei to Shanxi, so you can understand how they want to like twist things and turn things upside down.
Yeah, of course. Everyone has an axe to grind or an angle to play.
Right. So I'm just glad that we still have the art. So whoever the hell's in charge, thank you guys. You know how you want to sit, I don't really care. I'm glad that we still got it thanks to you guys. Yeah.
I mean, I just hope some of the, you know, regardless of which branch we're talking about, I'm actually really glad that certain small branches survived, like non-famous, you know, recently, like we mentioned today, like the Li Guangheng and the He Yunheng, and I also met with Liu Yuanheng, right, which is like I mean, but their practice is almost identical to Che style, but yeah, like I actually find. Maybe it's just me as a person. I like those unusual, not unusual branches, but branches that aren't famous.
Right. Yeah. Look, everyone's
Right.
got their
Because I
life
often find like those
experience.
guys, you know, those guys don't care at all whether they're well known or whatever, but they actually tend to be quite serious about their practice.
Yeah.
Right. I find the opposite with you know about this, like Wulin Dahui.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, I find that's the opposite situation where people want to be famous, but they aren't actually as good as they make out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I try not to watch China's version of the WWE, so you know, I don't pay attention to Wulin Dahui.
Because you know it's scripted, that's why.
People believe it, man. I've seen people resharing these fights, like, look how amazing this guy is. I'm like, have you ever seen a real fight? If you think that's real,
Yeah, have you ever seen a real fight? Yeah.
Anyway, well, those are my points that I wanted to, you know, that stuck out to me in the first 3 episodes. I mean, I think we fleshed out a lot of stuff. You guys had anything else you wanted to
We've
add?
got a lot of stuff coming up. I mean, I've, you know, looked at the episodes after, and there's still so much more to unpack.
Right.
You know, we've got the whole of the Republican period coming up.
Right.
We've got all of the most famous Shingi masters ever.
Right.
Like this is gonna be great.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we started. Jarek, did you want to add anything from the first 3 episodes?
Well, I think we've covered everything. I mean, all the main aspects, and then I'm really happy that this meeting happened, and then it's happening, and then you guys, I haven't been talking to people for a long time. I've been doing different things all by myself, and now it's such a great opportunity. And thank you, Byron, for arranging that and inviting me and having me here. Great to see you, John, too, and then talking to you. It's been a real pleasure.
The pleasure's been mine. Thank you for coming and
Yeah,
being
exactly.
part of this. I'm just happy to have
Okay,
you
yeah.
guys. I mean, really, I couldn't have,
Right.
like
Yeah,
I said
yeah,
in the
you know,
beginning,
Jarek, you are the fount of wisdom.
I wouldn't want to do this with anybody else. So I'm glad you guys that we're doing this. I'm not going to make any
I want to tell it
promises.
to my wife, I want to tell her, no recognition in the family.
I don't want to make any
You gotta get used to
promises
that,
to
unfortunately.
the.
Yeah.
I don't want to make any promises to the viewers about when we're going to do the next 3 episodes or whatever, but we will get to it in between Jarek seeking out places where immortals dwelled. So we'll figure it out at some point, but we'll definitely carry on looking at the series.
Yeah, and next time we do it, I hope to be wearing Byron's "It Hurts When I Pee" t-shirt.
Oh, that's the best one, isn't it?
That's my favorite one. Like, I gotta get that.
All right. I'll get you one. All right, guys. Well, thank you for that. It's been great. I hope the viewers enjoyed it. There's still a lot to unpack, but I think there's a lot of food for thought right there already.
I really enjoyed it. Looking forward to the next one, Byron.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Looking forward to the next section.
Yeah, me too. Bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.